Hello. Oh, wow. Okay, this isn't done. There we go. Yes, ask my director to place, put the camera back in a place where it like shows what's going on. There we go. That was almost a disaster. You didn't see what happened there, but there's a little cord that goes from the camera to the whatever it is OBS thing that controls the camera. And I put the done box because it's the Savoya pieces that are done. I put them over there, and the cord wrapped around it, and it almost dropped. And that wouldn't have been good because there's fragile pieces in there. That's why they're in a box, so that they could be kept safe from accidents like that. The stream is almost like that commercial, the Mayhem commercial. Now, I don't remember what they're selling. It doesn't really much matter, but there's this guy who's always just causing havoc, breaking things and making a mess. And this sort of happens on this stream, except it's not intentional and I don't get paid to do it. But there. Okay, it is going to be one of those days. I'm just trying to move the cardboard here, and it slipped on my finger, and paint containers went flying because I got out the paints that I want to use today. I did some prep work, okay? And basically what I did was I just cluttered the workbench. No. As I'd mentioned last week, I am dog sitting this week. And they were pretty good this morning. And they went out and did what needed to be done. I gave them a puzzle. They like puzzles, the two of them. When you put little bits of treats in behind these things that they need to slide around. Here I am sliding around, slide. It's like a sliding puzzle for humans, except that there's treats in it and it keeps them from being totally bored. So what I'm trying to say is, well, okay, they didn't sleep that well last night, so I'm a little bit tired, more than usual even. And I'm going to take a break about midway through. I usually don't, but this week I'm going to be taking a break, probably like between 11:30 and noon. And I hope it's a short break. I hope I can go up and say, "Hey, dogs, how you doing?" And I'll go whatever the dogs do to say that they're doing just fine and that they don't need anything in particular, but could you give me a treat anyway? And then I'll come down and do some more stuff. The stuff I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the thing I finished on Friday and continue working now on the Gnome Cleric, which will be colorful. Oh, sorry, just allergies are bad too. Excuses. I'm making excuses here. I'm going to be working on painting this minifig. I'm going to try to keep it on camera as much as I can while I'm doing that and talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And then I've got some Savoya work to do to complete the steps 5 through 7 here. I've got all these pieces done. They're all ready to go. I got the radiators attached. I did some touch-up paint on the inside of this. So the thing to do today is to install the engine in the housing, put the front cap on, okay, and then put the exhaust pipes on. And I'm going to do that today because I just want it to be done. It's been going on for a long, long time, and which should have been completed a week ago last Friday. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 streams later than planned because of various and sundry disasters, big oopses that happened along the way. And then some little oopses, and then I got started on these. These really need to get going. I should try to finish them. There's 4 of them. I should try to finish them this week. So this is going to be the priority. The only Savoia work I'm going to be doing is, like I said, completing the engine compartment. I'll probably do that in between, waiting for some paint to dry. This is the guy I finished last week. This is an orc spellcaster, not dressed as a typical orc because this group of 4 on the show are known as the divorcees. They've all been divorced. It didn't go well for them. It was a very unpleasant experience. So this guy is, getting ready to step out, I guess. So he's kind of fancy. The cleric is going to be kind of in the same spirit of, that. I'm going to be incoherent today. Great. She's going to be red and pink. Her armor is going to be kind of reddish with pink highlights. I'm going to paint this bronze with gold highlights. She's carrying a flame for some reason. I'll be painting that flamey. And I accidentally here with the yellow paint, showed everybody what I'm going to do, which is to paint her armor red, kind of a darkish orangish red, and then use a pink dry brush technique to highlight the high points. At least that's the intent. See how that goes. Bright red boots. So that's the plan. I'm going to start, though, by painting her face and hands. I did that on the orc, too. It's just helpful for me to know where that is. And there are also little nooks and crannies that need to be painted. The flame will take some time. I'll be wearing the head magnifiers most of the time because I have to be able to see what I'm doing. And I'll be using little bitty brushes. So this will be... Well, this isn't working. Huh. I got the wrong protective tubes and the wrong brushes, and they weren't doing any protecting. It's not working either. It's too big. Too small. I think I've got a couple more. I'm going to start with this brush and paint her face, okay, and hands so that I know where they are. While I'm doing that, I'm going to take a look at the armor and just see what I'm kind of getting into. I'm going to paint the whole thing. Oh, there's a flaw there. I have to check to see whether that little lump of something there is a flaw in the print. That's what it looks like. I'm going to have to file that off. I'm going to paint her armor pretty much monochrome, and then paint over the highlights. I think I'm going to do that. The shield, I'm going to paint the shield pink and then attempt to do an edging. Okay. As much as I can on the front and the back, and then paint some sort of sigil-like thing on it. Kind of just a meaningless design, but give that a go and see how it works. I'm gonna paint her face. Check out the armor. I might paint the mace next. Wait for paint to dry in between, that kind of thing. And while the paint is drying, I'll do little bits of the Savoya, little bits here and there. Yeah, that's definitely not supposed to be there. I'm gonna get a. Oh, yeah, clean that up. Ordinarily, on a on the Savoya, I would use some really fine sandpaper, but these are going to be on camera, so little scratches like that are not going to be noticeable. Checking out the detail on the armor to see what I'm getting into here. Yeah, I think I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, and hopefully it will look all right. I don't want it to look monochromatic, but on the other hand, I don't want to just cover it with colors. You don't need to do that. Just mixing up some paint here, doing some paint stirring. And then, as usual, always give it a good old-fashioned shaking up. I'm going to move the camera down. And if I stay on camera, you might be able to see what I'm doing as I put paint on. Really, there should be someday I need to figure out how to do the best placement for this. But someday isn't today. Today is not a someday. So generally, I don't have to be extremely careful with the hairline because I would paint over it with another color. But in this case, I'm going to be using speed paint. And the speed paint has a tendency to dissolve the other paints. And to bunch of this paint up, where the speed paint is going to go on her hair. This messy combination of hair color and flesh tone. So the whole thing gets delayed while I reprime the whole thing, which has happened in the past. What? It's a thing going on here. The thing that's going on there is that there's a plastic from the model, from the print. And I need the really fine pointed X-Acto knife, which should be right there that I can't see. Just try to use a pin. I don't know where that went. Somebody must have used it and not put it back. Yeah, you can't see what I see because you don't have head magnifiers on. But right here, there was a little droplet, essentially, of plastic from the print. Well, there you go. It fell right off. Fortunately, it didn't fall very far, and the receptor didn't break. Yay, not breaking. It's a good day on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons when something doesn't break. And painting and some elbow painting. These are less critical because the colors I will be using to paint the bracers and the baton thing she's carrying, they will cover this paint and not dissolve it. Be good if I could, and I might try it, just a tiny bit of brown wash just to highlight the fingers and facial features. I might try that. I'm not sure. This brush has a rogue bristle that likes to, it's mostly on camera. I am genuinely surprised when I look up, when I do that and I act surprised that it's on camera. You might think that that's just, a thing I'm doing to call attention to that fact, but that's not true. I am generally quite honestly surprised when what I'm doing is on camera. I painted the yellow on here. I wasn't wearing my head magnifiers, and so it was not clear where the hand was and where the flame was, but now I am, and so I can see that. That's a good thing. I'm going to complain a little bit here. Recurring rant about the difference between design engineers and production engineers, and how design engineers sometimes don't take into account the reality of what it takes to actually make something that they've designed. There's a little bit of that going on with this model. in that the design is like down here, this whole arm underneath here. It's really fine. It's a really nice pose, holding the flame up like that. See that? On the outside, it's pretty nice the way it, holding the flame, but on the inside, it becomes almost impossible to paint it. Yeah. The next, wow, it's not going to come off. The paint is clinging to the brush. Probably explains why it wasn't coming off on the model the way I wanted it to. I'll use this brush again. It has a really nice long point, which makes it, getting into these areas like underneath there, all the nooks and crannies and crags. That has to wait for the hands to dry. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to get out of sequence here. You get really fancy boots, all sorts of stuff on them that I'm probably going to do a little highlighting on. But I'm going to paint the boots next. Because the armor touches the hands and the face, and the armor also will touch the boots, and I can let the boots dry and then paint the armor. And get it. This might take 2 coats anyway, so I'll give this a go and see what happens. Use this glossy red very often. Yeah, see, it's still practically full, like it's hardly ever been used. There isn't much call for glossy red particularly, except like on the Savoia, but that has its own particular color of red. There's like a bunch of metallic clasps and straps and things on the boots that make them fancy, and we'll decide a little bit later how to paint those. I may end up using just the pink highlights like I do on the rest of the model, but I might also try to do something with a metallic maybe. Just highlighting. And I think these glossy red boots, these are pretty nice. Yeah. I think I'll do some, and she's obviously made a significant investment in these boots. That seems appropriate for a divorcee, doesn't it? You're divorced, you're wearing red and pink armor. Where are you going to put your money? You put your money in fancy designer footwear. B. It's in chat. Hopefully some folks will come back to talk about DMing. Who is the person who plays Nines the Tabaxi Bard in our Dungeons and Dragons show is traveling. So will not be on chat today unless they're really bored with their travels. I'm so relaxed. I'm so relaxed on my travels that what would I want to do to be even more relaxed? What could I possibly do to make it even more relaxed than being on this trip? Obviously, it's relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. What else could there possibly be? There are more paint applied. Getting all sorts of painting done here. It's only been a half hour and I've already got 2 different colors and an inability to put the cap back on the paint jar. Well, here, since I'm not able to do this, let's all watch me not there. Huh. I don't know what the deal was. The deal was annoying. So the next bit is I can work on the flame and the mace thing that she's holding. To use this. Because the flesh color is pretty well dried by now. I'm not putting off working on the Savoya. It's just this has actually a priority because we want to use these figures in our show. And I do believe we need them next week. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 next week, Monday too. I've got 4 streams, including today, to get this done. And Nicole, who's the artist, would make them look absolutely gorgeous in about half the time it takes me to make them look. Yeah, is the technical term for the quality of my work. It's okay. I've seen worse. Bristles. It's a really fairly expensive brush, but the bristles come apart on the tip, and then it's too terribly useful. I don't want to just cut them off. And that just makes the brush tinier and tinier. I'm going to work on the flame. I'm going to be spending way too much time on the flame detail. I just down. What I should do is just take one color and highlight the tips of it, but I'm going to put colors on the flame. I'm I'm wasting my time doing that, but I made the commitment to do it, so here it goes. Using this, it's called Fire Orange. So it seems appropriate that I would use this to put some orange highlights down near the base of the flame. And then I'll use sort of a glossy orangish red color to catch the tips of the flames. This, I'm going to then paint that bronze. Okay. It's not bad. That looks okay. It'll look better with the red because that'll really bring out the flaminess of the flames. Use this little brush to paint the bronze around the hands, and then this other larger brush. Oh, okay. Got protected by Wizbot. Oh yeah, bronze. I think this will look pretty good. The dark bronze with gold highlights. You can use polished gold, so they'll be real bright. And then I'm going to give her blue eyes. So at some point here, probably next, I'm gonna get some bright blue paint. And I want them to show, so I'm probably going to use like an aquamarine or something. Not just a dark blue, but a light blue. One thing I'm showing you here is, getting just all this stuff laying all over the place. Don't do that. When you're painting your models or your minifigs, I'd recommend that you just keep your work area clear like I'm not. Because then you won't knock into stuff and bump things. maybe knock things over and make a mess. You can avoid a lot of that by keeping your work surface. I think it was probably a year ago that I said, I probably should put new sticky tack on these things. It's not like I don't have some. Because what's on here has been painted over a couple of times and it's really quite messy. And it doesn't adhere that well, as you have just seen twice now during this stream. I really like using this bronze paint because it's a nice metallic, but it's not real bright. And so painting other metallic highlights on, like the gold bits, it shows. Whereas if I painted a brass or a not polished gold, which is plain old gold, sometimes the difference in shade isn't enough. So this way, when the polished gold highlights go on it, it'll look, you'll be able to see it. And there's like here and here and here and here, and the ribbing on this, those are all going to be painted that bright gold. Bristles on this have just gotten really chewed up. Wow. That happened. They're just going all over the place. This is definitely not sticky. I'm going to be moving this minifig from this one. After I'm done with this color, I would be moving it to the other one in an effort to get it to stick. I'm going to do it now. The holder thing kind of misses the point when it doesn't hold. So it's a good thing to keep rotating it, because then you can catch the spots that you missed, like I just did there, as opposed to being almost done and then rotating it and saying, oh, I can't believe I missed that spot. Oh, no. Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. What happened there is what often happens on this stream is that I'm very carefully applying the paint, right? But on the way to or from the painting surface, it bumps into something else. And in this case, she now has bronze on her nose. It might be okay. When I paint the eyes, I'll probably have to do some flesh touch up anyway, because, just missing where the eyeballs go. And hopefully I will remember to fix her nose. Okay, the eyeballs are tiny little spots of paint, and I'm going to use a blue, nice, I could do them purple. No, that would just be too weird, I think. I'll use this turquoise. Yeah, so in painting her eyes, giving her blue eyes, sometimes I can get the little dot of paint in just the right spot. Usually I don't. And so I have to do the flesh color touch up anyway, to where I missed and got blue paint where I don't want it. At that point, I will fix her nose. This is always hit or miss. It's a hit or miss kind of thing. I said it just got way too big. Maybe I'll just let those eyeballs get big. Yeah, it's just a mess. So I'm going to let them get big, and then fix the eyes and the nose at the same time a little bit later. One thing I did see though, and I'm going to do this with the flame orange, the red paint, is her eyebrows. Her eyebrows, I'm not going to use the speed paint on that. It's this bloody red on her eyebrows, because they should show. And then I'll use this to highlight the bits of the flame too at the same time and just get that done. Best I can make on her eyebrows with this paint. Not too bad. There's a little spot there. Yep, her face needs some fixing, but that's the way it is. I should be using a little bigger brush on the flames here, but did this flame highlighting here. Getting to be time to, yeah, it is getting to be time to put the base coat on the armor. We do that next. And then need to fix her face. Can do that after. I might have to, do a little touch up on the elbows or whatever as well. Get the flesh colored paint out. Okay. Well, the flame looks pretty flamey now. I think that came out okay. Don't reach over things. Don't do that. That's a good way to knock them over. It's the Bob Ross method of washing a brush. I've mentioned that. I watched one of his shows a couple of times, and he just swishes it really hard, and I don't think that matters. I don't think that really does anything. But paint, yeah, all over the base of the bristles. The bristle, I should say. It's like one bristle left. This brush is almost non-existent. Purchase some more brushes. Like 20-0 and 30-0 and things like that. Done. This is done. This I have to use again. This one. This is the base coat for the armor. Pretty much everything except the hair and the shield are going to be painted this color. And I'm going to try to do this and not make a mess of it. I think after this, I need to let the armor dry before I start playing with the pink. I'm going to work on the Savoya. Yeah, that'll be good. Good timing. Which is there are, boundaries that need to be very carefully painted here between especially the bracers and the hands and the elbows. This is going to be kind of slow. Attempt to get a nice clean boundary line. Mostly on camera. That not too bad. I'm hoping that this, with the pink highlights, will end up looking pretty cool. I was complaining about before. It's just all these spots like underneath here that are just really hard to reach. I got a little bit there where I don't want it. So I have to mess with that later when I do the flesh tone touch ups. Which, as we have already seen, will be essential on the face. And there will also be some around the hands and elbows. The bristles came apart there, and I was doing okay, and it just touched her elbow. So there's a fair amount of just little tiny dots of flesh tone paint that will need to be applied in different areas. There's enough. Yeah, that's good. There's enough color difference here between this color and the shiny red boots. After this sort of reddish, whatever it is, vermilion is dried, then I'll be spending a lot of time doing pink highlights and detail. But this is the base color of her various bits of armor. I'm going to have to decide at some point whether attempt to put little bits of brown wash on it or not. Maybe even a light gray, just to show. A lot of that will depend on how it looks after the pink is done. Just a little brush everywhere. Hard to reach. Back here, nearly impossible. A bit more. Hi. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. First time chat. I will. Since I don't know if you've been watching any of these on YouTube or not, or if you know what's going on. So this will be a good time for me to explain what this is all about. Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and we run a Dungeons and Dragons show. And this painting stream wasn't really a thing, except that we produce our own dungeon tiles and minifigs, like the ones I'm painting now, for use on our show. They're done on a 3D printers. This is a rosin print, and we have some PLA printers back there. And then they're hand painted for the show, the minifigs and the dungeon tiles. And so our DM thought, well, if we're going to paint them, why don't you do a painting stream? I'm not going to give you a studio, but I've got an extra Ring camera and a microphone that's not good enough to use on the show. And so we'll set you up, and then you can, since you're painting anyway, what the heck, somebody can watch it maybe. And that's how this started. And this particular minifig is actually one that will show up on the show. It's one of a set of 4 NPCs who are, our characters belong to a mercenary guild called the Company of Blades. And we're on a mission right now that involves several allied groups of members of the Company of Blades as well. And these are 4 minifigs. One of 4. I finished one last week, which isn't where an allied group of the group. I'm being incoherent today because it's Monday, and so it is. And wow, that needs a lot of fixing up front. Her poor face is a mess. Oh, I think I'll try to do this. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I'm going to put some lipstick on this character. Probably, this will probably not go well. But try and see how this goes. This poor brush is dead. Almost completely gone. One tiny little remnant of a bristle left. Up on her cheek. Bad. It's kind of working. It just needs, I got getting little spots all over the place where I don't want them, but for the most part, it's okay. Yeah, well, there's a lot of fixing up there, a lot of fixing up on that face, but I think in general it's okay. Yeah, this poor brush, I'm going to keep it because sometimes you just need a single bristle brush, but like I will when I'm doing the touching up on the face, but for the most part, it's a disaster. This one, yeah, 10-0. I need some 10 zeros and 20 zeros and maybe one of these. I'm supposed to go to the local hobby shop and pick some up, but haven't had a chance to do that. Well, I'm waiting for the paint to dry on her armor. And the mess I made on the face. What I'm going to do now is work on the Cebolla S21. This is Porco Rosso's plane. And it's a nice model kit that I was given as a gift. And I'm going to be doing some sort of final assembly here. This is the holder for the engine. The engine gets mounted in there. And the engine is in the done box. These are the parts that have been finished. And the big thing that's been finished, might as well show it to you, is the interior. The interior of the plane is there. The fuselage actually lifts off, so you can see the inside of the plane. And there it is. And this took, if anybody was watching, forever to do. This part had to be redone twice. This little cart, this rests on that little cart because it's a seaplane. And if it's on land, it can't go anywhere. So if it's on land, it sits on this. This is the engine that goes in there. So this came out pretty well, including the instrument panel. I think that, if you can see it, that all looked pretty good. Porco Rosso himself is not too bad. Slumped a little bit in his chair. Sometimes he sort of slides around a little bit, doesn't sit up straight. Yeah, I think that came out. I spent a lot of time trying to attend to the detail and the shading and things, and I think it came out pretty well. But the thing that this is the engine that sits on the top of the plane. I have the box over there. I could show you what that's supposed to be like, but this goes in here. That, okay. And this hatch here is supposed to be cemented on, but then there's a detail of the engine back there that's missing. So I'm just going to let it set so it will act as though it's a maintenance access hatch. I'm going to not cement it on. It'll just be off. So I'm going to cement this on now. These little slots here go on to the little tabs down there. This should be pretty straightforward. I've practiced it several times. I'm going to use contact cement because they're already painted surface. This isn't the typical thing that modelers use, okay? And I'm not recommending it necessarily for everybody, but I find, just for me at my skill level, this really works well because I'm not that good at preparing the surfaces. In terms of clearing them of excess paint and that sort of thing. I'm also not very good at getting the parts exactly where they're supposed to go the first time. What I mean by that is that sometimes I set the part down and it's in the wrong spot and it has to be moved. And this is forgiving. It doesn't dissolve the paint, okay, which is a good thing. I can put it on and let it set for a bit. In fact, it's designed to be that way before putting the parts together. And if I miss, I can reposition. So I find that it's altogether the best thing for me. It actually holds pretty well. It's not as good as the old model cement that dissolved the plastic and created a weld. Okay, it's not as good as that, but it also doesn't dissolve all the paint in the plastic, so it doesn't mar the surface quite as much. Let that set for a bit. And then this, once that's in place, this goes on the front. This goes on the front like that. It's supposed to, it's supposed to line up real nicely and automatically. And as you can see, it just doesn't. For some reason, this part doesn't like to cooperate. But I'll be doing the same thing as I'll be attaching that after this is after this sets for a bit. The other thing about this is that if there's excess, it's a little bit like rubber cement in that it's possible to clean it up. To go. Okay, these exhaust pipes then need to attach here later. There's little openings there where these are supposed to attach. That'll be just a little bit difficult. This stops making sense. It doesn't line up. It's supposed to go like this. Yeah, okay. These are actually supposed to be a little bit longer, and I guess they are kind of, just slightly. So that's going to hold. I'm going to let that set before I mess around with it too much. But I do want to test this. I want to see if this works the way it's supposed to. Yeah, it's supposed to there. Oh, yeah, that goes on right. Good. It fits. Okay. A lesson I've learned over and over and over, and I'm relearning now, is just don't mess with it. Just it's okay. Don't mess with it. See, the next thing is this supposed to go on? So I think I'm going to go ahead and try to put that on. Do is get the cement on the edges, but kind of on the inside. I don't want it to ooze out. Be on the inside edges of these things. Apply sparingly. If you ever built models, when I did as a kid, you had this tube cement, which was impossible to work with. It was very, very viscous, jelly-like. Okay. And it immediately dissolved the plastic and the paint. It made huge messes of everything it touched. And that apply sparingly with a toothpick or a pin, and it was just always impossible to do that. And I would end up with these spider webs everywhere. This stuff doesn't spider web that much, which is good. These little tabs here that are supposed to help with the alignment. A little bit got on the outside. It looks like there's a tiny little flaw in the paint down here I didn't notice before. There. Let's see how it looks when it's put on. I might need to try to touch that up. And I will try to touch that up. Okay, there. Now I need to figure out how to get the exhaust pipes on. That should be difficult. And then that goes on like that. And then there's another cover that goes over that. A good deal of the detail of the engine is lost because it's just covered up. Okay. I'm going to get impatient here. I am going to do that little tiny bit of touch up on that spot there. This is a delicate kind of thing to do. It's really is. So I don't know how I missed that before, but I did. It must have just not been sprayed right. I'll be right back. There's an opportunity to have something be almost really good and then mess it up. Let's see if I can avoid messing it up. Not sure. I don't have any brush-on version of this paint, so I have to use the spray paint. So I spray a little bit of the paint in this container here like that. I did some touch-up ones before. And then just barely touch it to the surface that needs to be touched up. Magnifier's on. It worked pretty quickly. This paint Dries very, very fast. Like what happened is there was a little bit of scrape there. Something scraped the surface. Okay, well, it's fixed. Yeah, and there's tiny little infinitesimal flaws under 2 times magnification, but without it looks okay. So I think that's all right. I need to use the alcohol to clean this. I'm going to not mess with these exhaust pipes right now. I'm going to put this box. I'm going to put this box with the parts back here, so it's out of the way. Yeah, time to go back to my cleric. And I'm going to, I'm going to work on the mace a little bit. And then her face. And then I'm going to take a break. And just to check on the dogs that I'm sitting. Obviously, I'm not sitting them right now because they are upstairs, hopefully behaving. It's been very quiet. I will take that as a good thing. I was very cautious and moved that way over there in case I happened to spill that. I wanted it to not spill on the Savoya model. What I did do, though, is I lost my little plastic tube thing. Did I set it in here? Yep. Not the brush I'm going to be using on the mace. This is the brush I'm going to be using on the mace. What I'll be doing here is I'm going to be taking some bright gold, and there's these little rings and also the flutes on the mace that I'm going to be painting bright gold. And I'll be using this again because I really cannot see anything without this. But yeah, before I got off onto all of that, working on the Savoya, I was talking about Dice and Dungeons and how this stream is a spin-off because we do our own dungeon tiles and minifigs like these that I'm painting for our D&D show. I saw something that needed to be fixed. So yeah, so this was for our D&D show, and our DM thought it'd be just great fun to stream this as well, since I was doing the painting anyway. We used to have music in the background. It's not supposed to be playing, is it? That program is supposed to not be running there. Anyway, we did have some music in the background, but there's been, I don't know, Twitch. It's done by Alexander Nakarada, who is a really good composer, and we're paying for it and have permission to use it on the stream. But every once in a while, there's this copyright thing going on, and so there's no music in the background. And then I'm supposed to talk. to fill the time. It's supposed to be entertaining. And usually I can talk about real history from the 1950s and 60s. Because I got to live through that as a kid. So I can speak with authority about what it was like to grow up back then. And I've got to talk about, interesting stuff. Like when I was building the submarine, the Polaris launching submarine, about the nuclear triad and cool stuff like going to the state fair and trying to talk, because there were people selling fallout shelters then. There were like 2 vendors. They would come to your house with a big backhoe and dig up the backyard like they were putting in a swimming pool, except that they put in a fallout shelter, which would even be cooler because, you can use it all during the winter too. It even came with enough like dried food and barrels of water and stuff to keep you going for 2 weeks, because apparently that's all you needed was like 2 weeks of hiding in the fallout shelter. And then you could come out, and the radiation wasn't supposed to be enough to kill you right off. So you were relatively safe, I guess. But it was kind of, interesting growing up in a time when you could buy a fallout shelter at the state fair. I was very disappointed because my dad would never buy a fallout shelter and stick one. We could hang out there and eat the freeze. I don't know if there was really ever really good freeze-dried food. I guess back then, yeah, because they were making that astronaut food. It's when that kind of thing really got started. I don't think we got the same stuff in the fallout shelter as the astronauts got. Probably not. But for some reason, when you're a kid, you're like 9 years old or something, the thought of living in a fallout shelter and eating food out of a plastic bag that you've injected with boiling water somehow seemed like kind of a cool thing to do. Didn't have the same appeal to the parents, though. So we were just disappointed. In fact, everybody around us was disappointed. I don't know anybody. I don't remember anybody growing up who actually put a fallout shelter in their backyard. I guess maybe we just, it wasn't a real posh neighborhood. It's very, I guess it was middle class at the time, working neighborhood. Everybody worked in factories. There were factories, lots of factories then growing up. People sitting around making things, but it wasn't where like the lawyers and physicians lived. It wasn't that kind of neighborhood. I don't know if they bought fallout shelters. I don't know. They might have had, enough money and lack of sense. But I think part of it though was that we came from kind of a military family. My uncle was in the Air Force. My dad was for a little while too. They were just of the opinion that it just didn't matter. You know, if the bombs started falling, it'd have all the fallout shelter you wanted, and just it wasn't going to go well. There, I put all the gold highlights. I think that came out okay. Bright gold on the outside of it, and the darker color underneath. Definitely need to fix her face. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the flesh color touch up, the flesh tone touch up on a little bit on some hands. There's some spots where I touched the paint wrong, and mainly the face. And then after that, I'm going to take a short break to check on the dogs that I'm supposed to be watching. And come back and put the pink on her armor. It'll look a lot better with the pink. Oh, I was going to put some metallic. I was going to put metallic highlights on her boots. I guess I'll do that a little bit later. Okay. See if I can fix the mess that I had made here. It's like one bristle left on this brush. Or I can even use it. This brush is going to have to be retired really, really soon. Can't even use it to put dots of paint on anymore. Sorry for going quiet here. I'm trying to get tiny little dots of paint on her face. Paint isn't behaving. And the brush isn't behaving. Paint is actually is too thick. Can't use this brush. A little bit left. So I'll see what I can do with this. Okay, well, it's not great under magnification, but it looks okay without the magnification. So that's a good thing. And I'm not going to mess with it anymore because these are going to appear on camera at a distance far enough so that those flaws will not be obvious. But it's pretty clear that this brush is dead. There's like one bristle left. It's way too long. I'm going to have to after this set of minifigs, I'm going to have to invest in some new brushes. Sure, there's an opportunity to go to the local hobby store to do that. What I'm going to do with this, it might seem a little weird, but the one bristle that's left is too long to use. I'm just going to make it shorter. Maybe. That might be, I might still be able to do some stuff with this. It's like the third one of these I've gone through. They're very, very fine. I think it's like a 20-0, something like that. But oh, jeez, yeah, I knew there was a spot. The spot on the elbow there that I got the red paint. So it's about like a 20-0 brush, but I'm going to invest. I've got this one. This is a 10-0, which is really good for detail. It's an ancient brush. I think I bought it like 30 years ago or 20 years ago when I was painting Warhammers. Okay, the next color is going to be pink, and I'm going to be highlighting the raised parts of her armor. And then I am going to use like brass, I think. Why not get another color out? Use brass, not bright brass, but just regular old brass to highlight some of the raised parts of her boots. Let me just do that now. Her boots are dry. I mean, the red paint on it is dry. So I'm just gonna try this, see how I do. So she's almost done. I need to do the pink. I need to paint her shield pink. The last thing I'm going to do is paint her hair red using a speed paint. Try to carefully apply that so it doesn't just mess everything up. But that'll be like the end of the last bit. I'm going to come really close to finishing this today. I'm not sure I'll actually succeed. There's just some raised bits on the boots. Along just ridges. And when I was painting these originally, I was saying, okay, divorcee, what should you do with extra cash? Just invest in fancy footwear, right? So that's what's happened here. And this is going, it's kind of messy, but I just want to give the impression of the fanciness that these boots have. There's like these straps and stuff on it that are going to have metallic accents. Not real lavish, but bits. To decide later if I want to try to touch some of that up. I might. These lines aren't exactly perfect. I might come out with red paint and touch it up like here. It just got too fat right there. And just put some little dots of bright red paint on here and there to just try to fix the flaw there that I made. Yeah, I'd say that went pretty poorly, but I'll try to do some touching up on it. But the brass looks pretty good against the red. Pretty mediocre job at that, but I'm going to let that dry and then I can fix it after the break. Just clean it up a little bit so that the edges look a little better. I'm going to take a very short break. I just want to check on the dogs I'm sitting and maybe do a quick bio. Distance. I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to be using pink paint to highlight the high spots on the armor and paint the shield. Okay, and then let that dry. And while I'm doing that, I'll paint her hair, and then I'm going to paint some sort of edging and sigil on the shield. So I'm going to be back in very, very brief time. Okay, I'll put the break screen on, and then keep this as short as I can. Back from the pet break. Took a little longer than I thought it would because, well, things needed to be done. I'm going to attempt to highlight the armor here. Not make too much of a mess of it while I'm doing that. Sometimes things work out really well and they look great, and sometimes they just don't. And this will be one of those times where it either does or it doesn't, right? Right. That's the way it is. Yeah. I'm going to take these off, put the head magnifiers back on. And what I'm attempting to do is there's like these raised surfaces on the armor. And I'm going to attempt to make them pink. It's happening here. It's becoming pink. The pink goes pretty well with the base coat. Okay, together. See how much of this I can do. Beans are just not behaving all that well. Maybe it's too cold down here. I don't know if that's the case or not. They seem to get too viscous too fast. That was an oops there. The brush just hit the wrong place. It looks like there's going to be, a little bit of red touch up in a few places where it's just real obvious. There's a few places where it's obvious, but I don't need to bother. Part of this is doing it so it's good enough. I couldn't get the brush there. Can't get the brush there from here. Being really quiet here because I'm attempting to paint detail and not succeeding very much. Hi. Oh no. Oh no, that's bad news. You couldn't get it to boot up. I had that happen. I had one computer, it was ages ago. I don't know why I kept it. I had to reconfigure the BIOS. Seriously, every time I boot it up. Finally, I just said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. The thing I had to scrap it. There wasn't anything salvageable about that computer at that point. So I'm hoping that I hope you got it fixed. Obviously you did because you're online, so you're able to get it running again. But what that means, of course, is that anything you were planning to do, you couldn't get done because we are dependent upon these electronic devices now. If they're not working, can't do anything. It's really kind of, it's actually a little bit scary how dependent we are on computers. It's like we had a power outage some time ago, and we actually have a generator because sometimes we have power outages, and we live in a pretty rural area. And the internet went out too, but everything else was running. Okay, we had lights, we had water. But we didn't have internet. And it was like, oh, we can't do anything. Yeah, it was weird. We even lost cell phone service because the power to the cell towers near us was out as well. It was quite a to-do. But it was so weird, just like, oh no, we don't have internet service, nothing can happen. So we become extremely vulnerable that way, actually. One of the ways the world could end is electromagnetic storm, like the Carrington event. You know, I mean, we can talk about doomsday things here too, like the asteroid that's going to hit us in 2036. We've got 11 years left. And so if that happens, that could be bad. But if we get a coronal mass ejection like the Carrington event, boom, our way of life will be, just obliterated. Oh, why not? Let's talk about doomsday events. So if you don't know what that is, you should look up the Carrington event. What happened was that way back in the 1800s, there was a gigantic coronal mass ejection that hit the Earth. The story was that there were auroras down as far south as like the equator even, because of all the ions hitting the atmosphere, all the charged particles. But what happened was, one thing is the only electricity at the time, which is why it didn't make that big a difference, is the only electricity at the time were telegraphs. And so these charged particles came streaming through the atmosphere, and they crossed the telegraph wires and induced a current. That happens when a magnetic field kind of crosses a wire in a conducting wire. You'll end up with a current, and it knocked telegraph operators off of their feet. And they were just sitting there and induced a current and actually supposedly started fires, like it set some telegraph equipment on fire even because of the current. So you can begin to imagine what that would be like now if there was this huge current induced in all of the high voltage wires and stuff. It would be pretty bad. The transformers would just all go kaplooey. It's a technical term for that, for what would happen. They go kaplooey. Paint. Basically, electricity would end. So we really don't want one of those to happen. But it did happen once, and coronal mass ejections are happening all the time. They usually just aren't big enough, or they're not aimed at us directly. But it would be quite a mess because, you can go without internet for a day, you feel kind of lost. It's like, what can I do? Can't do anything. Okay, this is getting pretty close to being done. I really would like to finish it today. I need to let this pink paint dry. And what I'm going to attempt to do I need to do some touching up. Red paint touch up. I'm going to touch up the boots first. I know we're just so dependent upon things that we think of as just always being there, but they're incredibly fragile. Especially our dependence on electricity and its transmission. At least you got the operating system, huh? Okay. That's something. At least you got that working. Well, I cleaned the brush just in time to see that I needed a little bit more pink down here. Okay, well, I'm gonna get out the bright red. Okay, so it's not like perfectly working again, totally, but working well enough to be able to do what you need to do. That's good. Put some brass embellishments on her boots, and in the process kind of made a mess of a few things. So I'm just going to try to do some little touch-ups. It's not too bad, but it's just spots that don't look good. There's less there than I thought there would need to be. I think the pink turned out pretty well on her armor there. Yeah. It's not too much. It's not too bad. The shiny bits on the boots look good. It's not overdone. Well, I'm waiting for the pink to dry so I can do the touching up on the armor. And the shield is, I am going to go ahead and paint her hair. I don't use speed paints very often because I'm not just really very good at that kind of thing. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, do some cleaning up. That's the thing in the physical world, the accumulation of stuff is bad enough. Just the accumulation of all of those, of everything. But you can see it. You can say, like the workbench here. It's like, okay, this has gotten cluttered. It's a mess. And say, okay, I need to clean this up, and I know where to put it. But in the electronic world, the thing about the electronic world is that you can't see it. It's just it's invisible. It's just electrons, and then at some point, things stop working or they get cluttered or things like that, and it's just a lot harder to get around to cleaning up because it's just out of sight, out of mind kind of stuff. So you can see it here, the way the speed paint is supposed to work. There's actually two pigments in it. There's a darker pigment and a lighter one. And the dark, like a wash, it's like a built-in wash. It's supposed to puddle in the recesses. So instead of having to put a base coat and a wash on, speed paint does it all at once. Yeah, it's working there. And I chose this. I wanted her to have red hair. Didn't have any red wash. So I couldn't do the old-fashioned wash it and base coat it and wash it. But I tested this, and it's a pretty good color. Well, I think I did an okay choice there. You need to be a little careful with it, though, because I can't really touch up over it because it dissolves in the paint. Sorry, I'm just going quiet here as I'm trying to get this done. Yeah, when you run out of space and you get an error message, insufficient memory or not enough storage. But now it's gotten even klutzier. That's a word, technical word, because people store their stuff in the cloud. There's limited space in the cloud, and you can run out of it. But until you do, you don't even. It's not even on your own computer, so it becomes even less noticeable. It makes it even easier to accumulate just massive amounts of stuff you don't need. I've had clean up my files on my to-do list now forever. Forever being like over a year. Get around to doing this, why don't you? Because there's just so much mess accumulated. Okay, that came out okay. I think that came out okay. The speed paints worked just like they were supposed to. Just like they're supposed to. Okay, I'm going to now do a tiny bit of brown wash on her hands. Just really, really light. Just barely. Just not to darken it. Not to darken her skin tone, but to just highlight the fingers. Hi, thanks for joining in. Yeah, I will be here for yet another half hour. This goes from 10 until 1. And I'm finishing up, hopefully finishing up a minifig, one of 4 minifigs that we're going to be using on our D&D show, Dungeons and Dragons show. And this one is a gnome cleric. You might wonder about her bright clothing, but the situation is that she's in a group of folks known as the divorcees. Oh, I'm looking at it through these head magnifiers, and I just saw that there was an obvious flaw in the paint here. I'm at the little bits of touching up stage. There. I'm going to put I'm going to use the just regular brass. I'm going to try to put an edging on the shield just so it doesn't look so blah, and then paint some sort of sigil on it. Just a nonsense character, just to kind of fill the space. And at this stage of the stream, what it pretty much comes down to is not messing up. If you haven't seen this before, frequently what happens during the last half hour or so is I start to lose focus and I get cold. And then really interesting oopses can happen. I'm trying to not have an interesting oops here. I'm trying to have a really boring. Let's finish this minifig. I want the edging to show just a little bit around the edges here. Doesn't have to be perfectly even. So this minifig is going to show up on our Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams with a live chat. We just had one yesterday on Sundays at 2 Eastern US time. And all of our previous episodes are available on YouTube and as a podcast. And if you haven't, I want to encourage anybody and everybody to check it out because it's actually a very entertaining show. It's not like a one-shot or anything. It's been going on for over a year. Our characters have developed pretty well. We've got some interesting adventures happening. We have made some powerful enemies who are going to try to kill us because they're enemies, you know. They do that sort of thing when they're enemies. Just because we stole some, pilfered, heisted, recovered. We recovered some things that they had stolen initially. So I guess we didn't really steal them. We really did do our recovery mission. Okay, so it's not so much what kind of sigil-like thing I put on the shield as it is what color. The whole thing is kind of red and pink and metallic. But I'm thinking, I'm not thinking at all about what color it should be. I was thinking maybe like a blue or aquamarine. I don't want to do it in metallic. That's too ostentatious. But I think it has to be red. I think it has to stay with the theme. So I'm going to use the glossy red that I used on the boots. Okay. I'm going to use a glossy red, and I'm just going to put some sort of thing on it. It's not going to be symmetric or meaningful or anything like that, but just some sort of decorative thing on the shield. Just see if I can do that. Make it look kind of interesting. Get the paint to actually come off the brush. Like I said, I'm not trying to make it mean anything. I just want it to look not just like this big flat pink surface. So I might say, what is that supposed to be? And it's supposed to be squiggles. It's supposed to be exactly what it looks like, which is just squiggles. Yeah, it looks like squiggles on the shield. Well, I still have 20 minutes. Okay, that's good. There's enough time now to finish this. And the finishing part is painting the base. And I'm going to show you the other one. I'm going to paint all the bases the same. The other one, the one I had finished earlier, is an orc spellcaster. Okay. And this one is gnome cleric. But the bases are all going to be alike, which is they're painted in gray with a dark gray wash that I put over it to make it look blobby. Now let me get the gray paint out. I don't need these for that. But thanks for joining in. Anyway, what am I talking about? No, I'm babbling. That's another feature of this relaxing painting thing, is that near the end of the stream, as I close in on 1 o'clock, I get cold and incoherent. Although today I was incoherent from the very beginning, which was pretty neat. You know, usually I don't get incoherent until afternoon. But I want to finish this, and then I want to show you the progress I made on the Savoia S21, because that's part of what I've been doing on this until these minifigs showed up. But there's 4 minifigs in this series, and they are all part of a group called the Divorcees, who are an allied group in our mercenary guild, the Company of Blades. And our group, Midnight Brunch, in our D&D stream, is on a mission. We're mercenaries, so we're getting paid. We're on a mission, and this is one of, well, it's a big mission, a big, complicated, dangerous thing. And so there's these NPC allies who are also members of the Company of Blades assisting us. And I believe that these 4 minifigs need to be completed this week, so they can appear in one of the, we record the sessions, so that they can appear in a session that we're going to be recording next week. So I have this week and next to finish them. That's not too bad. I finished, this one is finished in one stream. And during this stream, I also got some work done on a Savoia. So this was a pretty productive, if you've been watching this stream at all, sometimes I can go an entire 3 hours without a break and essentially get nothing done. I've done that working on the Savoia, is I've come really close to accomplishing nothing in 3 hours. But today, this is a very unusual event. It really is. I've managed to finish this minifig and it looks okay. That's an even better thing, is that it looks okay. Huh. Imagine. I'm just going to use a slightly larger brush to finish the rest of this. With these big bottles of paint. We bought these big bottles of paint because when we paint dungeon tiles, we use a lot of paint. there's a lot of surface area, and this is an economical way to do it. But even then, I'm really cheap. And so I like to use the paint that's in the bottle cap that otherwise would just dry up and be wasted. So that's what I'm doing here, which works pretty well on dungeon tiles when there's a lot of paint. It's not so good on minifigs because it dries up. Just using tiny little dots at a time, the paint actually dries up in the cap before I'm done with the color. But in this case, with the base, when I'm painting a good chunk of it like that. And it looks like I got some on the boots where I didn't want to. I might have to do a little touch up on that before I finish. I need to look through the head magnifiers. I'm going to let the gray paint dry, but not completely, because when I put the wash on it, when I put the gray wash on it and I daub it on, it's okay if it mixes with the paint a little bit, because I want it to look uneven, like this ended up looking uneven. And and then you got spots like that need to be covered because it got under the sticky tack and didn't get painted. There's always something, there's always something, just little bits of something that when it's, this is all done. But no. And that will actually show up on the stream, that little white thing, because it'll be against a dark under background. Okay. I was hoping not to have to do this, but I'm going to have to put my head magnifiers back on again because I want to see if I messed up the toe of that boot. I think I did. I think I got gray paint on the red boot. Then I need to, these have been on the entire stream, so I'm going to have to charge them up. Yeah, I did. I spattered paint on it. Oh my. Yeah, and it's obvious enough. I need to fix it. Let that dry just a little bit. While that's drying just a little bit, before I do the wash and the red touch-up, I want to show you the Savoia. Get the box out. Take these off for a moment. This is the Savoia S21 that I'm building. There. This is a model kit of Porco Rosa's plane, and that's what it's supposed to look like when it's done. And that's the interior, and the interior actually that I've been working on actually does look close to that. It really is coming along pretty well. This is a really nice, great, just knock it right over. Bang, there we go. Really cool model kit that I got as a gift, and I'm working on it and trying to make it look really, really good. And the thing I did today is this was supposed to have been done over a week ago. Is the engine compartment, okay? And the engine is now in the engine compartment, and it's settled in there, and it's finished except for the exhaust pipes. I need to install these exhaust pipes next week. It's just a tedious thing to do. There's tiny little contact points, and they need to match up. And it's not something I can do near the end of a stream like this, because it requires a level of eye-hand coordination that I tend to lose when I have low blood sugar and cold. which happens in the last half hour. Okay, I'm going to touch up the little bits of gray that hit the red boot, and then I'm going to put the dark gray wash on the base, and then I'm going to say, ta-da, it's done. And I'll do that. I'm actually going to say ta-da. That's my exclamation of, oh, it's done. That was it. It's that tiny little dot of red paint. And I'm going to use this brush to daub on the gray wash, if I can find it. These to do that. Trying to keep things neat and clean. That's a lie. I actually don't try. I talk about keeping things neat and clean, and then I just clutter up the whole workbench pretty badly, make really pretty much a mess of it. And then about every couple of weeks, I complain about it being such a mess that I actually do clean it up. Like between now and Wednesday, I'm not going to use these colors anymore because I'm done with this one. I'm going to be working on the Elf Archer next. And the Elf Archer is a whole different set of colors. And I want this wash intentionally to be quite uneven. I want there to be blobs of it that are darker than the rest. So it looks a little bit, kind of interesting. So it's not just monochromatic. I've been told that I'm not a very creative painter. I'm not artistic. And so, even as a kid, there's when you get crayons, right, and something to color, there's some who pretty much just like make a different drawing on top of the thing that they were going to be coloring. Or they do a background for it, or just it might even look messy, but at least it's something, right? I was the kid who always stayed in the lines. All of my crayon work was in the lines, and you can kind of see it here. Even though I did some shading and washing on it, the stuff I do ends up kind of looking like an animation cell more than anything. I do a really fine job of staying inside the lines, but not a very good job of making things look interesting or creative. So I guess, painting minifigs like this for the show, it's okay. They look okay on camera, but they're not the kind of thing that you would buy for a display model or anything like that. There. Now I've got 2 of them done, 2 of the divorcees, the orc spellcaster and the gnome cleric. Why the cleric has a fireball, I do not know. I don't know the story behind the creation of this print, but she has a fireball. And there it is. And there, I think it came out pretty well. So let me show to you the next one. The next one is an elf archer. The take on this one is going to be very different from these. Okay, these divorcees are like, I'm free now. I am going to go to the tavern and go, hey, I'm going to the tavern and be bright and bubbly and shiny. This one is, I am beige now. Yep. But rather than painting it like ranger green and things like that, this guy is beiged out and is going to be various shades of light brown. And then I'll be using like a brown wash on it just because there's a lot of patterning on the cloth armor here. And then the final one is this halfling. She's a halfling, has a big sword. It is just going to be painted like a halfling of, scale armor. That'll just, decent, kind of interesting, but not bold coloration on the skirt parts. So this will be the last one I do. There's all sorts of runes on the sword. I'm going to try to dry brush those to highlight them. I'll see how that goes. That should be interesting. So 2 of the 4 are done. I might be able to finish the archer on Wednesday. So come back on Wednesday and see what happens here on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. Be adding to the collection of the divorcees. I'll be talking about Dice and Dungeons and our Dungeons and Dragons show and why you absolutely, positively, completely must watch it because it is really amazing and cool. And maybe I'll probably attempt to put the exhaust pipes on the engine just so I can finish that. I'll be doing that near the beginning of the stream because it requires good eye-hand coordination, which I do not have near the end of the stream. But I think this one came out okay. I think it looks okay. Not too bad. Yeah, that's it for today. I'm going to be wrapping up, and I want to thank everybody for joining in. If you want to support Dice and Dungeons, please become a follower. That would be tremendous if you did. If you watch this on YouTube, you can become, a subscriber. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/diceanddungeons. And you can become a patron. And as a patron, you get access to our DM notes and also to our warm-ups, our hilariously stupid warm-ups before we record each session. So feel free to do that. I don't know. This might be interesting if you think it is, or if it's just relaxing. Let everybody you know and people you don't know and strangers and everybody else about it and have them join in, become followers. I'll be back on Wednesday at more or less 10, and I'll be working on this minifig, this Archer minifig, and finishing up what is going on there. Yeah, I'll be cleaning it up first because there's some little bits of hanging on plastic on the arrow that I'm not going to try to fix today, but I will before I paint it. Yeah, this guy's next. And I'll recap this, talk about Dice and Dungeons, do a little bit of work on the Savoya, and be able to put the engine compartment into the done box, which I am going to not leave there where it will be knocked over. 10 until 1, probably a little bit of break, because as I said, I'm doing some pet watching dog watching this week. So like today, I took a little bit of a break in between to check in on them to make sure that they were not chewing anything up or doing whatever dogs do when they're bored. Yeah. Babble, babble, babble. I'm babbling near the end. I have not learned how to wrap things up really well. So I will wrap them up poorly by saying thanks everybody for joining in. I look forward to checking in with you on Wednesday. And Ammon, I hope your computer is working really well for you again. I know that's a real pain. So sorry that happened, but I'm sure that you'll be able to fix it. Thanks everybody. Take care. See you on Wednesday.